Welcome to Moving Forward with the ICCI, the podcast of the International Coaching and Counseling Institute. My name is Noah Broom. I'm the founder of the ICCI, and I will be your host on this podcast. What we're going to do here is bring the world of coaching and let it meet real life. We're going to bring you skills, knowledge, theory, and even tools from the world of coaching and show you how this is really connecting to everything that we do in our daily life. Because coaching, as we believe it, is not just for leaders or for people who are really special. When you know the tools of coaching, you understand how you can really translate it into almost everything that we do. Because we are talking about connection, we're talking about communication skills, empathy, listening skills, and who doesn't need that? Let me start with a story. This is the story of the man who wanted to be the happiest man in the world. He was told that if he only goes and looks for the current happiest man in the world and takes off his shirt, then he will become the happiest man in the world. It took him nearly all his life to find that man, just to realize that the happiest man in the world doesn't even wear a shirt. Now, I heard that story when I was a teenager. And back then, I had a nice book that I bought. And I used to write quotes and poems and things that inspired me. You know, like the old version of Pinterest. I used to draw pictures and some sketches, and I absolutely loved that story. It is attributed to a storyteller from the 80s or 90s called Shlomo Abbas. And it's a short story, so I could remember it by heart. At the time, as a rebellious teenager, or at least what it felt like rebellious, my mom will tell you a bit differently. She was dying for me to be a bit more rebellious than I was at 17. But at the time, I loved the punchline of that story. Somebody told him something, and he realized all by himself that reality is a completely different thing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's what I thought back then. Now, I want to believe that with age comes some wisdom, and definitely that story keeps coming back to me time and time again. And although the punchline is great, I really believe in it as well. Not everything that somebody will tell us is the reality that we should dance to or go by. And we will come back to talk about it in just a second. There is really a lot more to that story. I will point out one of the things that strikes me now when I'm much older and hope wiser is that there really is a story here about walking the walk and taking the journey. Pay attention. It took him nearly all his life until he realized that the happiest man in the world doesn't even look like he thought he would. Now, he was ready to take that journey. That man we are talking about, he had a target, an aim. He wanted to find something, and he did not give up. Now, I think this is such a crucial message because we all live in this bang bada boom world. We want things to happen to us quickly. We want things to be very clear right from the beginning. We want answers quickly. We live in such a fast world. And we forget that in order to get to something meaningful and in order to get to some conclusions that are really meaningful for us, we need to walk the walk. More than that, we need to enjoy the process. We need to believe in the process, and we need to enjoy the way to wherever we are going. There is so much to discover on the journey. Not that long ago, I heard a story of a guy. I think he was from Cameroon. I certainly remember that his name was Momo, but cannot remember his surname. But the story is that he had a dream as a child or a teenager to work for the UN. And he was about 24, 25 before he finally secured a job with the UN. Now, the story behind him, and I don't know how much this is true, but I want to believe that the truth is someplace near it, is that he applied to nearly 500 different or 500 different times, maybe more than once, to the same job, but he was constantly looking for opportunities to work for the UN. Now, if you analyze what happened to him, first of all, you will say, okay, he was crazy optimistic, which, yeah, maybe he was. But I want to believe that there was more than optimism there. I want to believe that because that since he was, 16, 17, he had that dream and he did not give up on that dream. On the way to finally securing a job with the UN, he grew up. He developed. There is no way that his knowledge at 18 or at 20 was the same knowledge as he had at 25. I'm guessing that he studied on the way. I'm guessing that he developed certain skills. In other words, it is only when we agree to walk the walk that we enjoy transformation that helps us to get to the goals that we want. Or, as we could see, maybe to different goals. Which brings me to the next point. Coaching is a lot about, and you will hear it time and time again, it's about setting goals and achieving them. Setting more goals and achieving them. On the way to setting big goals, we also need to set smaller, affordable goals or possible goals. You will hear people talking about baby steps. This is all correct. But I want to introduce you to another way of thinking. One of the things that can be really stopping us is having a certain goal and sticking to it too closely. I'm not against goals. And we will have a whole episode about goals and goal setting. But pay attention that the people who are really doing an effective job are those who have a goal and they are constantly checking if that goal is still their goal. What is happening a lot during the process of going towards something is that we realize that there is more to discover. Or we realize that maybe that goal is not exactly our goal. A little bit like the man who was told to look for a person that certainly had a shirt on. But because he looked and looked and looked, I am guessing that at one point he had an aha moment that he said to himself, wait a minute, maybe that's not what I'm looking for at all. Maybe by looking at different people and seeing what they're doing, because he was looking for a very happy man. But maybe when I'm looking for that happy man, I will discover that there is more to happiness than being happy plus wearing a shirt. And when that clicked, only then he was able to look for another person who actually is not wearing a shirt at all. And what happened to him in this process? He was ready to quest. He was ready to ask himself questions. And those questions that he dared to ask, saying, maybe that what I'm looking for, that person doesn't even have a shirt. Only when he was ready to ask those questions, only then he could find his answer. Now this brings me to coaching. Because in coaching, one of the things that is very important, and this is also one of the things that coaches learn to do, is to ask and put a question mark near some of the things that their clients will express. And I will explain. When people come for coaching, or people are coming to you and are talking to you and are sharing things with you, one of the good things that you can do is to ask them, is that so? Is that the truth? How long do you want this to be so? Why? We are all stuck in some kind of world, which is our inner world, in which we are telling ourselves things. And I will make it very simple for you. For example, we all have beliefs. We all, for whatever reason, from the way we grew up and from the culture that we were part of, or how we saw things in life, we live with certain paradigms. We live with certain thoughts. We set with certain beliefs. You maybe have heard about limiting beliefs. This is it, okay? And each one of us has a way of living. And most times it's great. We live by our values. We live by what we believe is good. We do things in a certain way. This is who we are. But it is when we are stuck, or when we feel that there is more to it and a place where we want to grow and we cannot achieve it by ourselves, that we need to ask questions. Now, it is one of the more difficult things. As we say, a camel does not see its back, right? So, who are we going to use? Usually, another person who can listen to our story and to ask us questions about it. First of all, questions of information. They want to hear who you are, how you do things, what have you done so far, what are you planning to do next, etc. They need to ask those questions. But it is also the idea behind questing, behind asking the questions that might make us a little bit uncomfortable. But these are the questions that if we will only allow ourselves to listen to them and to let them sink, that they will create the biggest change. Now, you have to be somebody really ready and put your ego aside for allowing another person, who might be a complete stranger, to put those question marks in front of you. Because it's not a comfortable place to be. Really, really not. And we are very vulnerable. However, a good coach will know how to, first of all, be there for you. They will never ask you those questions from a place of interrogation. They will always come with a very empathic being. They will be there for you. They will empower you. They will say, I would like to ask you something because I really believe that there is something else here that you might not see. Even if they won't say it in words, this is how they're going to come, with truly, truly believing in the ability of their clients to change. And if we take it for everyday life, then the ability of another person who we really care for, it can be our children, it can be our partners, our friends, we really believe that there is more to them than what is being seen or the way that they have behaved so far. And we are here to help them create a change. And the change can only come when a person is looking beyond that very chewed up expression. But it is important to understand why it is so important. That cliche is, I always say that cliches are coming because they are true, but it is looking beyond our comfort zone or beyond what is familiar to us. And I believe that man who was looking for the happiest man in the world at one point on his journey, because he believed in the process, he believed in what he's doing, then he was able to question himself. Is that so? Is that the person I'm looking for? Is that how they're going to look? Is that what I need to get from them? Only when he put a big question mark next to what he was doing, that he was able to actually find the solution and get to his goal. I don't know if you know it, but it is very common for people in high positions to create a small group of mind-like people, but they don't always agree with you or think like you. So let's say I am a manager at a certain position, and those managers, they put a group of 2 or 3 more people, like a mastermind group, that they believe in them, okay? Each one in that group believe in the other 2 or 3 people, but they think differently. So they have the same kind of mindset of achieving things and doing things, but they are not the same people. And these are considered the best leaders. Why? It is very easy for people in high positions to very quickly have a group of yes people, okay, yes men, and I try to incorporate women and other people to this equation. So yes people around them. Yeah, people who are really, working for them, and maybe people that they employed, so they chose them, etc. But good leaders, especially in companies that are very successful, they will have also a group of people that are not necessarily thinking exactly like them. Why? Exactly because of what I said, that we need to question almost everything that we do. We might get to the conclusion that we still want to do the things that we plan to do. And this is perfectly fine. But by looking at what we do from a different angle, this is where change comes. I want to go back to the point of agreeing to walk the walk. So we said that questioning is important. We said that it is important to think that maybe our goal has changed. And now I want to emphasize a little bit more on the idea of walking the walk and how important this is. So I want to share something that my own coach was talking about not that long ago. And when she said that, I thought, oh my God, it's like, you hear the penny drops. She's a coach for healthy living, and she's really promoting sport. And what can I tell you? I personally am not a big into sport, and I'm not the only one in the group. Maybe that's why we're all going to her. And she shared something very nice. She said that when we decide to sport every day, and she is really into, moderate to high speed sport, but she prefers that we will do 300 minutes a week of some kind of activity, that will raise our blood flow and breath, etc. She says, do 300 minutes a week, which is, if you think about it, it's 50 minutes to an hour a day, depends how many times you do it. And it's a lot. It's a lot for especially people who just started. Now, she's shared the following, which I want to share with you. She says that when you start sporting, let's take walks, okay? I currently do mostly walks. In the beginning, there's going to be tiredness. You're going to get tired very, very quickly. And only after you do it again and again, let's say daily 20 minutes, do it daily half an hour, this will then become a habit. When you really are doing it every day or nearly every day, and you're getting used to it. So I can share with you that I can almost say that I got used to dropping the kids and going for a walk. It doesn't work every day. I sometimes have engagements, but I'm really trying to plan my day that in the morning I have a good, let's say, half an hour walk, sometimes by myself, sometimes I'm trying to talk on the phone to somebody. That passes the time very quickly, listening to a podcast, anything like that. But it's tiring. I remember the first days, the first weeks, super tiring. But now I can say that it is almost a habit. It is touching on it. After it becomes a habit, she says that because you've been through that habit day in and day out, you get stronger. And because you get stronger, that becomes fun. It becomes not so hard to do. And when it's not so hard to do, there is, at least in sport, they are talking about being addictive to sport, to the hormones that it creates, to the sense of achievement. It becomes something that you really want to do for yourself. And only then, really far down the line, only then it becomes what we see with athletes and sporty people, that it is not only kind of sort of an addiction, but almost like she calls it living in a high, you know? So her name is Roni Shachar, and thank you, Roni, for this, for such an insightful explanation of what can happen when we agree to walk the walk. Our habits are changing. We are becoming a different person. So on top of what I said in the beginning, it is important to walk the walk, because that's how we change, and this is how we see things differently, and we don't give up, and we are achieving what we would like to achieve. And sometimes that is when we realize that things have changed. Here is an example from sport of why that change is so important, and why not giving up on walking the way is so important. So it can take weeks, and it can take months, and it can take years, but a process is a process. And this is when we will see results. This is when we will see a possible change, and only then we will see that we get to certain goals that we would like to achieve, or to a certain change. And I want to remind you something that most people forget, especially, like I said, in the world of everything is so quick and we see results all the time. Let us not forget that everything, okay, to be specific and not to risk it, I'm going to say almost everything, but trust me, it's everything. Everything that you see that somebody else achieved or somebody else done, there was a long process behind it. Like a long pregnancy or a long preparation. And you see the results and you think, oh, that was so easy for them. But no, not always. I can share with you that this podcast, it took me nearly 2 years from the moment that I understood that this is something that I would like to host until it is now, and I'm sitting and recording it. About 1.5 years ago, I took some training on how to create a podcast, and then I had to run ideas, and then I aborted the idea because I had other things that I wanted to do, which were more important, but it was brewing and brewing and brewing, at least 1.5 years. And it was only in the last few weeks that I listened to that course again, and that I did certain things that made me ready to record this podcast. And I listened to my own mentor, Maytal Chesner, and her husband, who explained again and again in a podcast of their own and in a program that they created. I listened to that as well. And I listened to a few podcasters that are talking about podcasts and what is important, what is not. And I asked myself again and again, how do I like listening to podcasts? So, for example, one of the conclusions that I got to is that the podcast that I enjoy the most are actually ones where there is a conversation. And I know it's different from person to person, but because I got to that conclusion, I can share with you that there is a line of people that I am going to interview, and we're going to have conversations about coaching and life, and how coaching changed their lives, and how they're using coaching in their everyday life. And it's going to be so interesting because these people are so inspiring. And only recently I bought some new equipment because the old microphone wasn't doing its job. I hope that this one will do its job properly. And it takes time. And even now, I'm recording the first episode, but oh my God, there are going to be so many to come, or at least I hope so. And this is a process within a process. So if you're listening to this and you think, oh, here is Noah, and she started a podcast. Actually, just before I started recording, I wrote to a very good friend, and I wrote to her, you see, I've poured some tea in a cup that you gave me, because it helps me to kind of feel connected to her. And okay, it helped that she also texted just a few minutes before, but it made me feel that here it is. That's the right moment. I'm going to sit in the office and I'm going to record this. And she wrote back, oh, I'm dying to open a podcast. This is definitely the next thing that I would like to do. But hello, you're now writing a book. You're having your own head start, and your book is going to be amazing. And you have just different dreams. But yes, if you also want to make a podcast, you will one day. But this is all part of a big process of becoming ready to do something. And I want you not to forget that, because we see the end results on people and their businesses, or with their children, or they've lost a lot of weight, or anything like that. And we forget how much they were dedicated to the way itself and to asking themselves questions and making decisions again and again and never giving up. So, we're going to conclude. There is a very strong importance to agreeing to walk the walk. In that walk, it is good to have a goal. But we always need to question ourselves and to see, is our goal still the goal that we want? Is this the way I'm thinking of going there? Is the way that is going to get me there the quickest or the easiest or in the most effective way? What else do I need? Can I do it in a different way? All these questions are extremely important in order to create the most accurate process for ourselves. And as long as we walk the walk, we can always look back and say, I've done it. So here we are at the end of the first episode of our new podcast. Who would have thought that I will ever say that I spoke for around half an hour without stopping, and I'm presenting to you the first episode of Moving Forward with the ICCI. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm inviting you not just to tell us how it was and if you liked it, but I would like to really hear from you how that resonates with you. How does that resonate with you? I would like to know if when you listen to the podcast, did you think about something that you've done that because you didn't give up and because you had a vision of what you would like to achieve and you have let others help you by questioning what you're doing, you eventually got to really where you wanted to? I'm going to put that question in the Moving Forward Facebook group. And I will put a link here in the description to the podcast of how you can reach us there. Feel free to share our podcast if you liked it in all the normal ways. We are appearing on Spotify, on the iCloud, and of course on our website as well. So feel free to just send it to whoever you think can be inspired by it. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see each other on the next episode. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.